there you are, who is going to host our closing keynote. And just a housekeeping note, as Vincent comes to the stage, we do have box lunches outside. So you feel free to snag one now if you want, or when you're leaving, there should be plenty this time on your way out. And before you leave, please make sure you take a picture if you haven't already with our I Collaborate Because sign. And Jeanette with the chair massages will be here just a little bit after 5.
I'm going to use that.
There you go.
I'm going to use those chair massages. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. How are you? Come on. You know what? You've been here all day. I know you've been sitting. So here's what I want you to do, because I don't want you to like fall asleep when Daryl Holiday comes up. So everybody get up. Come on, rise up, everybody. Okay? Stretch yourself. Okay? Move your muscles. Do all that kind of stuff. All right? First of all, I want to welcome you to Philadelphia while you're stretching. I want to let you know that I'm the Vice President of Broadcast for the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists. You met my partner in crime, Manny Smith, yesterday, who was doing the moderating. He's my best friend. So it's interesting to serve with your best friend, because you're the only one who can kind of curse him out when he's doing something wrong, which is kind of cool. But we are happy and honored that you are here in Philadelphia. The 200-plus journalists that have come, we thank you for our city. We hope that you have spent a lot of money as tourists. So, if you haven't done so already before you go to the airport, either today or tomorrow, please do that. Do all of our touristy stuff. Eat a soft pretzel, eat a hoagie, run up the Rocky Steps. Please do all of that. So one thing that I was told is that we still have socks. Okay, so if you need some socks, still have some socks if you need it. And I also want to I also want to make a quick plug, just say that we hope that the Collaborative Journalism Summit comes back to Philadelphia, so we're making our early plug. We love having you here, and we'd love to see you again next year. And I also want to thank the Center for Cooperative Media at Montclair State University and Stephanie Murray. Let's give her a round of applause. She has been like the Energizer Bunny running around. I would definitely want to charge my cell phone next to her, because she would make sure I'm on 100% all the time. So I'm going to have a really quick introduction. You're seeing that as the evening keynote, Don't Just Engage, Equip, how deep collaboration at City Bureau is sparking new avenues for journalism. And I'm going to bring up the man himself, Daryl Holiday, News Lab Director at City Bureau. Yeah, come on up, bro. And stay awoke, because I hear that Daryl has a cool thing that we're going to do after we're done.
See if we can get to it.
All right. There you go, bro.
Oh, thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, good afternoon. Can I just do a quick survey? Has anyone here been to City Bureau's public newsroom in Chicago? Got about 5, 6, 10 people? Okay, cool. We have a bit of a tradition there. Some of you will be familiar with it. Usually we do individual introductions. Everyone just gets to say their name. But there's a lot of people here, so I want to see if I could get a little bit of a pair share going. That would mean you turn to one of your neighbors, or two, and answer 3 questions. Your name, where you're from, and it's always different. How about if you were a superhero, what would your superpower be and why? And I gave you 3 minutes. All right? Okay, go for it.
So like I said, talk amongst yourselves.
Try and meet someone new. Yeah, can I?
It's flexible.
Oh, okay, got it. Much easier than I thought. Thank you.
It's just going to be you and then audience questions.
Yeah.
Will anybody else be talking during the audience questions? I mean, not a member of the audience, like you and the event person. It's just
All right, I'll give it 30 seconds. Yeah, we're gonna find out. All right, everybody ready? Oh, I don't think it is on actually. Hey, the
Every-
mic's off, but I'm just gonna stop really loud.
Everybody ready? Here we go. There you go, my friend.
Thank you. Everybody talk about superpowers. Can I get a volunteer, someone who will talk about their superpower? Who did flight? Raise your hand. Someone did flight. Who did invisibility? All right. Okay, let's get a volunteer. Who wants to talk about what their superpower is?
Okay, I'm going to come to you. I'm doing the Oprah. Hold on for a second. Hold on. I'm Oprah and Donahue. Hold on for a second. You get the job. No, you get. Okay, hold on for a second.
Hi, my name's Jack. Heather and I both said in unison one that goes one better than flight, which is teleportation.
Nice. Can we do one more?
Raise your hand. Come on, don't be scared. Okay, all right. We're in a room full of journalists. Don't pretend like you're scared. Not that loud. Hold on for a second.
The superpower of closing your eyes and sleeping for a week, opening them and you're refreshed.
Whoa.
That sounds like parenting.
Every journalist's dream. Which mic is on? Is it this one right here?
That's right.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to bring some public newsroom tradition to this space. So now that you've all come with me this far, I've got just a bit of a confession to make. This talk is not going to be about City Bureau. We're going to talk about power. Yours, ours, collectively, and how we use it. So you've all heard this before. This is a bit of a truism. It's obviously true, but lacks some definition. Information is power. What we mean is that power is the ability to produce intended effects, or power is the process of affecting the policies of others. Power is the ability to employ force. Power is the ability to cause or prevent change. Controversial opinion maybe in a room full of journalists, but in journalism, another word for power is impact. As journalists, we have a lot of power. We sometimes talk around it. We sometimes disguise it beneath objectivity. But what we do as journalists is influence and change society for better or for worse. Fortunately, power is infinite. Eric Liu writes about this in his book, You're More Powerful Than You Think. It's the 3 fundamental laws of power. The first is that power concentrates, as does powerlessness, as does impact. The second is that power justifies itself. It creates narratives to explain why the people who have power should keep that power. Fortunately, we have this third law. What he's saying is that there is no limit on the amount of power citizens can generate. I'm going to repeat this a few times, so I want to just unpack it a bit and take a step back. 90% of journalism, I would say, falls into this category. Journalists inform. We connect public interest to issues, context, and analysis. We are the first draft of history, the fourth estate, and often the final word. I say impact is another word for power because impact is the ability to produce intended effects. When your story prompts a pothole to be fixed, or a financial audit of local government, or the mayor to be fired for corruption, or the president to be impeached, is someone working on that? That's impact right there. Uh, Engagement is a growing field in journalism that many of us here practice. I've been hearing a lot about it today and really loving the conversations I've been hearing. The core tenets of engagement can be described in many ways, but one of my favorites is that it builds relationships with the people formerly known as the audience. Engagement can lead to a variety of positive outcomes, like social media engagement, listener-driven questions, attendance at your events, new relationships between the newsroom and the public, among many, many others. Equipping, however, is about agency. It's about providing access and opportunities for public participation and production. Equipping is about teaching and interconnected learning. It's about exchanging skills and resources. It is a redistribution of power between institutions and individuals. And it scares the hell out of people in power, I think for good reason. Equipping is recognizing that there is no cap on the amount of power people can create, recognizing that the power that people already have, and providing access to resources that build power in the public. The difference here is pretty key. With the projects that equip, your community causes the mayor to be fired for corruption, or that pothole to get fixed, or the financial audit of local government. And in the process, trust rooted in experience can be created between your newsroom and the public. So I want to propose a more unified vision for journalism here. As journalists, we are great at informing. We are getting much better at engaging, but we have a ways to go in equipping. But I believe that journalism that strengthens democracy will do all three. So don't just engage, equip. But why equip? One reason, journalism that serves the public is great for democracy. There is a growing body of evidence, you've all seen these stories, that the loss of newspapers, the decline in the availability of journalism has disastrous, costly consequences. We need newspapers, we need investigations, we need to know when the new market opens in our neighborhood, we need to know when the subway is closed on a workday, and we need citizens to be equipped to navigate the world around us. Because good journalism is great for democracy, but a citizenry equipped to meet the challenges of democracy is necessary for democracy. So to hold our place in that process, we need our communities to trust us. But there is ample evidence and reasons as to why they do not. Last year, City Bureau partnered with the Center for Media Engagement to conduct a study of 900 Chicagoans on their perceptions of and relationship with local media. The results confirmed many of our suspicions working as journalists, as publishers, as editors for the last 10 years or more. Chicagoans on the south and west sides of the city were more likely to feel that stories about the neighborhood quote the wrong people. And it's important to note here that the south and west sides of Chicago are largely ID'd with the city's black and brown populations. People in those same areas were less likely to feel that news media does a good job of showing what is going on in their communities. And more than half felt that stories about the neighborhoods were too negative. But here's where it gets a lot more interesting. The same people who were most likely to feel that they weren't being served by local media are exactly the same people who most want to get involved in local media. So there's a lot of hope, there's some potential there. I would say this is because there is a growing thirst to participate, especially from those most often left out of the public narrative. Fortunately, there are emerging systems that have the potential to accommodate that thirst, which brings us back around to power. In their book, New Power, Henry Timms and Jeremy Hyman's lay out old and new power trades. Where should I, oh, there we go. On the left is what much of journalism looks like today. We represent people in public dialogue. We compete for clicks. We literally have our own definition for the word exclusive, and we're the experts. On the right is what democracy looks like. At City Bureau, we believe that the future of journalism looks more like this. It's made of networks, it's collaborative, it practices radical transparency, and it equips people to be makers. This is how we democratize journalism. We also believe that journalism can be an act of citizenship, acts that are co-created with citizens, but if that's going to be true, many more people will need to be involved in this process. New power equips people with the tools to build power. And journalists, I'd say, are the most well-positioned to equip people with that kind of power. Don't just engage, equip. So what does it look like to equip through journalism? It looks like City Bureau's Documenters program in Chicago, which trains and pays everyday people to hold local government in account by attending public meetings, by live tweeting those meetings, by producing notes in collaboration with local journalists, or our editor office hours, where our editorial director, Bettina Chang, offers free advice, resources, and editing tips to the public and local freelancers every Wednesday from our newsroom for free. It looks like one of my favorite organizations ever, Detroit's Outlier Media, which is using text message to deliver service journalism on demand. It looks like public access TV and community radio, like BRIC in New York City or PhillyCam in Philadelphia. And many, many others offering public access to broadcast equipment, media tools, and physical space. It also looks like outlets that use crowdsourced tools like Document Cloud to get people more involved in journalistic processes, and those that host public workshops to teach their readers about things like FOIA, pivot tables, data sourcing, and basic skills like using your mobile device as an accountability device. And I can almost guarantee you it looks like your local public library. The list goes on, but I would say it doesn't go on long enough. I'm sure some of you can guess what slide is coming up next. That's the one. Fortunately, inspiration and frameworks for informing, equipping, engaging and equipping are plentiful. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We just need to reimagine local journalism, what it can be. From the world of politics and government, we have the International Association for Public Participation Spectrum, which begins with inform. Again, that's just the first step, and then goes through consult, involve, collaborate, and ends with empower, which in their model is the greatest among these steps. This is a hierarchy. This is saying you can begin with inform, but really the work is through this process towards empowerment. Equity advocates like Q in Chicago remind us to center the people directly impacted by our work when it comes to indirect impact and the experience of impact. Community organizers have been using an asset versus deficit-oriented approach for decades. This focus on the assets of a community rather than its needs, deficits, or problems is a shift in mindset that journalists can bring to their work on a daily basis when defining coverage. I see a photo, I'll hold off for a second. No problem. And from the civic tech space, we have Erhard Graf's empowerment-based design principles, which say, be inclusive, give users agency, provide opportunities for reflection, tell stories with data, and anticipate breakdown. Anyone else want to take a photo of that one? And from youth education, we have the Chicago Learning Exchange's Connected Learning model, which says that programs that prioritize interests, relationships, and opportunities are those that connect learners for life. And you can see the impact the youth education has had on City Bureau's framework. This is a proto theory of change that we're working out right now. So in a moment, I'm going to say why this is important. Lastly, from Twitter, Galaxy Brain. Is anyone already familiar with the Galaxy Brain is? All right, for those that don't, it's just a meme. It's a social media meme. Here's one example. This is like the pattern. It's always basically something simple, something slightly next level, and something like mind-blowing. Yeah, I'll try and get as close to that as possible. All right. So how much time do I have? Oh, we have enough time for sure. Okay. So in keeping with the spirit of the public newsroom, I want to stop talking and generate some ideas with you. Is that all right? We ready? Okay. This one is also a group activity. So as we're shaping up what this theory of change, this proto-diagram framework looks like, I want to have everyone do it with me. So if you could also, again, turn to a neighbor, 2 or 3, form small groups, and draw this diagram. If you have a piece of paper, just 3 circles, and think of, all right, you ready? Think of a story that you either want to produce, or you have produced, or you read, and put that in the inform circle. Think of a way that you would engage around that exact same story, and then think of a way that you could equip the community that reads that story. So this is blue sky. Don't think about budget. Don't think about the big stuff. This is just big imagining right now. All right, you ready? Anyone have any questions?
Hey, Daryl, repeat that, Daryl, because you know our brains have been kind of fried.
Yeah, this is the 4 o'clock fade, right?
That's right, we're on fade now.
All right.
Repeat that again.
Yeah. I'll repeat it while y'all are forming groups. All right, so step 1, draw this diagram. Step 2, write out a story or an idea that you want to produce. Step 3, write out a way you would engage around that same story. Put it in the second circle, the engagement circle. Step 4, write a way that you would equip. So this could be how you might partner with an organization that equips, like I'm going to get my library to work on a workshop. And lastly, if we have time, think of the outcome. What happens to the community if all of these things happen? Let's call it 10. We'll call it 10 minutes.
So talk amongst yourselves, okay? Nothing's wrong, nothing's right. Just it's whatever your vision is. Daryl's going to be walking around as well. We told you we'd get you up on your feet, right? We told you we'd get you thinking. I love seeing these brains working. Keep on working. Talk amongst yourselves. You could be creating the next $1 million idea, so. They're going for it. Your circles don't have to be perfect, okay? We're going to stop the exercise at 4:45. It's 4:37. If you have a question, you can ask. Daryl's here to help, so if you have a question, raise your hand. To all those watching us on the live stream, we want you to participate in this as well. You can draw the circles at home. We won't come to you, but you can draw them at home. We're helping you build up an appetite, so when you get to those snacks at the end, you'll really like them. I can tell you, those snacks are very Philly-based. You'll like them. As a native of Philly, I've eaten many of them. You'll like the snacks in there. Yeah, remember, money is no object in these thoughts, right? If you had unlimited money to cover, what would you do? We've got about another 5 minutes before we start asking questions, so keep on thinking. Four minutes remaining, everybody. 4 minutes remaining. When we have 1 minute remaining, I will hold up this sign. And then when we're ready to stop, I will hold up the stop sign. That's right, you don't have to stop. I'm just telling you that I have it. I control the sign. Keep on thinking. Okay, everybody, 3 minutes. 3 minutes remaining. I feel like a sports announcer. 3 minutes. Okay. All right, Dow's taking executive privilege. I was going to show the 1 minute remaining, but now Darryl said, stop.
I hear the lull in the room.
Stop now.
I imagine people are. Vincent, you're great.
You know what? This is the warmest the room has been all day. All this brilliant brain power making us warm. Okay, everybody stop. Go ahead, Darryl.
All right. Can you guess what I'm gonna say next? Does somebody want to share out?
Raise
Do
your
I-
hand if you want to share.
I got a group. I got a volunteer. Somebody wants to talk a bit about.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. As we say here in Philly, don't be scared. Okay. We're not scared people.
Hi. I want to expand a little bit on my time cut off with the project that I was talking about. In San Jose, because it's so relevant to this, one of the things, it's like I said, we're working on the housing crisis and the question specifically of property ownership and engagement, and I think it's so relevant to everything that that Darryl just talked about. And from me as a community organizer, my perspective is communities are engaged. Communities are active. Communities share information. Communities know what's up. It's a lot of times newsrooms that are disengaged from the communities that we report on. And so my approach was in San Jose specifically to really scope out organizations that were very active on the housing issue, already asking questions, already wanting to build with newsrooms, and built with a neighborhood organization in East San Jose, which is like working class Latino immigrant neighborhood. And they were basically saying, we want to know how to look up property records.
Yes.
We want to know if like this empty lot is in tax escrow and the city can take ownership and turn it into public housing. We want this information. And so we did was this community watchdog workshop where our newsroom partners basically trained the community to look up property records, to look up the Secretary of State website so they could find out who the shell company is actually owned by, who the development company that is registered to a shell company so nobody knows who's actually the owner, where do they go for that information. And the idea of that was to ideally lay the groundwork for the crowdsourcing and like to equip these folks with these tools where we can deploy them if need be at this very localized level to localize our reporting. The challenge in the outcome right now where we're at is figuring out how to do that and how to implement that, because there's still this resistance. And we were just talking about, we can say, oh yes, we want to engage, but then it also comes down to being willing to get past the discomfort of collaborating with the communities. And folks still, like there's still some newsroom folks who they love the process, they loved the workshop and having that kind of interaction with the community, but there's still a skepticism or like a hesitance to let the community be part of the reporting process. Especially because they're known as like an advocacy organization. So that's what, so we're still thinking through it, but yeah.
I love that. Thank you.
Summary, you got to go into the hood.
Think another one?
Raise
I know
your hand.
y'all are out there.
Oh, I know you're out here. Okay, there you go. This is the easiest moderating thing in the world. He does all the work. This is awesome. Stand on that, man. Hi, Anna. How are you?
Good. How are you? So our newsroom reported on lead in water fountains in public schools for a couple years, and then last year we got some of our members to we gave them kits to collect soil and water in the public parks and worked with community colleges to test that. And we were going to do some more this summer, but the city council just passed a bill to test the public parks every year. So, yay.
Which city?
New York City.
New York City. Okay, great. And I also want to say she had a really good design there. So your circles don't have to be perfect. Anyone else?
I would say too, I love that one. I think there are a lot of opportunities to crowdsource quality, accurate journalism with your community. But yeah, can we do another one? I love these. This is my favorite part.
Okay, where am I? Raise your hand.
Making Vincent hustle over.
That's okay. No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm a Philly kid. It's all right. It's easy. That's right. That's right.
Thanks. Chris from Boston Institute for Nonprofit Journalism. we talked about, we did a project this year with Muck Rock and the Engagement Lab at Emerson, where we saw that there was millions being overspent on weapons procurement. We had a bunch of 2 public newsrooms initially to inform. I'm trying to put it in this context. Inform community members. There were activists. It was a pretty diverse group of what was going on. They helped us file a bunch of FOIA requests. We ended up getting thousands of pages of documents put through the Muck Rock tool that some of you saw, where people could help annotate it. That was the second public newsroom we did. And then we were talking here about, and that resulted in some really good stories and some scoops, but we're talking here about what the equip would look like. So I like to, first of all, there were a lot of documents that didn't get used, more on the municipal level. So I hope we did the right thing. We took a lot of that and actually found advocacy organizations in those communities that could use that information about tasers that were being used that shouldn't be. But what we were saying furthermore, what we could really train we could have worked with the communities, and we still can. That helped us to now lean on lawmakers instead of just trying to form a social media mob. Really being more organized about at that end of it, and really having them use the information that they help produce to take it that next step and push for that actual change.
One thing on data, too, that I've been thinking about lately is I think we've all read stories where there's investigation. There's obviously a lot of source material, databases, research. I think one easy way to equip, one sort of 101 basic way, is to be linking our source material more regularly so that folks can get involved in a way that is beyond just taking what we say. That's great, yeah. That's super cool.
Okay, let me come to you.
I'm going to break the rules, and I'm going to ask a question instead.
Cool.
Because what if the story doesn't involve data?
What do you consider data? Maybe let's define data, I guess.
Okay. Well, let's say it's not about figuring out how many of something there were or whether something is in a certain place, but what if it's about how people are talking to each other or relationships or what a politician is doing? Are there in other words, the question is, are there some stories that work better for equipping the community than others? Are there some stories that really don't work with this and some stories that really do work with it?
I'm of the mind that any story can have an equip component. Maybe Documenters is a good way, and from my personal experience of answering this. Documenters as a program is not really a data-based program. We send out people, anyone. There are about 750 enrolled documenters at City Bureau between Chicago and Detroit. We send them out once they've gone to an orientation with us, so they get training in the OMA, the Open Meetings Act, the Fair Report Privilege, sourcing, the basics of journalism, and then they are able to apply for assignments to go to city council or the police board or these various commissions, committees, subcommittees, advisory councils, and report back to us and the public what happened. A journalist then writes stories off of that content. So really it's not a data-based approach, but it's a way to monitor local government, build relationships between the documenters. Like they ID themselves as documenters in their public life on their resumes. So they are connecting together as this volunteer corps. Well, they get paid, so they aren't really volunteer. As this flood journalism freelance corps. I think that is one way that forming relationships leads to equipping. The other example I used was the editor office hours. It doesn't have anything to do with the story at all. People might come in with stories, perhaps. They might come in just to learn about journalism. Journalism can be very opaque to people. They see the final product, they see the story, but don't always understand that we interviewed 15 people and left out 10. Why do we leave out 10? Why do we keep the 5? Explaining those basic things so that people really begin to understand how journalism is produced, I think falls into the equip category. They are more capable or more able to assess what is good journalism. Does that answer the question? Cool. So we
Anyone
moved
else?
in-
You can report on inform, engage, equip, or you can ask a question. We have about 10 minutes. Anybody else? Okay. See, we're saving money. We're only using one microphone, so we're being fiscally prudent.
I just wanted to add one potential way that we had approached Equip at the new Tropic where I was previously, and that was during public budget hearings, looking at the items in the budget that were discretionary. You had the most chance of sort of influencing decisions on, and then had somebody who regularly lobbied the county commission during the public hearing process to talk about how to most successfully sort of lobby for changes during that public hearing process of the budgeting, like what kind of data they would bring to it, how they would go about prepping others to present alongside them, and things like that. So if you had problems with something, you could have a greater chance of affecting decision making there.
Right. Got a similar example. We talked about the Chicago election when Shy Vote was up here. Right before the election, we sent out 50 or so documenters to do 100 interviews with people across the city of Chicago, just about what they knew. So, like Fernando had said, we found out that people don't know what ward they live in. That is critical to knowing what alderman you should be looking at. So there are things that we found out from just sending everyday people out to do basic interviews of their neighbors, strangers, friends, family on where information gaps were in the city. And we use that information, those 100 interviews, to direct our coverage. So our reporters were looking at that data and figuring out what stories were really going to be service work around the election. They did a bunch of other stuff too. They did not do the scoreboard horse race reporting, but they did do some more in-depth reporting around specifically what do we know people are lacking? What is the information that we know is missing?
And I think to piggyback on Darryl, I can tell you as the news editor for WURD, which is African American radio station here in Philadelphia, people just don't know. Elections, you'd think they know, but some basic information they just don't know. Like they don't know what ward, division, who their state rep is, who their state house member, they just don't know. So you're really even providing a service, and we do it at the radio station. I do it every election where we just kind of give people election 101. Like these are even the races on the ballot. And you get people who are like, wow, I didn't know we were electing a judge. Good example, here in Philadelphia, this coming Tuesday, we're having a mayoral primary. There's a lot of people that are not sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're talking about the mayor all the time, no matter what. So any other question, anything else? Okay.
Not a question, just sort of an observation from some experiences we've had, that oftentimes this idea of equip, or you go into a community and you engage and you do listening and then you ask them what they need or how you could be more helpful to them. We've often heard from people who just say this, convene us.
Yeah.
Because we are all working on an issue, but we're very busy and we're siloed, and we don't get the opportunity to get together and share our own insights with each other. And just also, you know, when you ask a community, I think journalists need to get beyond the assumption that what communities need is a story. Like everything sort of has to boil up to a story. And it's sort of like maybe what a community needs is a conversation, or maybe what they need is some training on how to look up property records. And if we could just sort of get out of this idea that journalism is about being in the story production business, that might help us, you know, do better by our communities.
Could not agree more.
Questions, comments? I was going to say concerns. Hold on.
You got concerns?
I have no concerns. I like what you guys are doing.
This is so amazing. I want to thank you very
Yeah.
much for giving us this vocabulary. And I'm really thinking a lot about my past work, and I think actually a lot of what I've done in the past has been equipping people. Maybe I didn't put these words to it, but that's what I was advocating for.
Right.
I'm an independent journalist now. My name is Anjali Shah. I was a founding editor of Global Nation at PRI. And one of my favorite parts of the job, and the part that I fought for the budget, tooth and nail to do, was to really prioritize bringing in first-time contributors who were both journalists and non-journalists, and equipping them very literally by giving them editing resources, treating them as actual contributors, going through drafts, all of that, and paying them,
Yeah.
which I think is just so basic and fundamental, and too many people do not do.
Goes a long way too.
Yeah, and that's equipping them in life.
Yep.
Which is really, really important. So I just wanted to raise the issue of money, as I do everywhere I go.
Yeah, thank you. I completely agree. We've had documenters who say they paid their phone bill because they went to a city council meeting to bring information out to the public. That's like a virtuous circle, in my opinion. Everything about that is great.
Well, we promised we're going to get you out at 5, so we still have time for a few more questions. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? There you go. That's all right. No harm.
I'm sorry. I'm also endlessly interested in logistics. I'm just interested in how you figure out how much to pay people when they're documenters, and if you can tell us a little bit more about that process, because that seems the really rich, and or if there's a place online or somewhere else that we can find that information, that would be really helpful.
If people are interested, we'd be more than happy to write a blog going into this. Like whenever I get questions that keep coming up that are really excellent like this one, we're happy to go more into it. We set the amount at $15 an hour early on, and we raised it to $16 about 6 months ago. So the pay scale essentially works. Like you go to a meeting, it might be on average 3 hours long. The flat rate is essentially you get paid $50 to cover that meeting. If it goes beyond that and you stay, some of these meetings end up being like 8 hours because something's being discussed. There are no reporters there. There are no people in the community there. The documenter might be the only person who's there getting information out. So we add per hour. So if you end up there for 8 hours, we will pay you $16 per hour. That 15 amount was not based on an original calculation. We felt like it was fair. It's above minimum wage in Chicago. And then we raised it because we were adding layers of training to the process. So we made it a bit harder, but have been providing training to compensate for that.
Hey, Daryl, we've got like 2 minutes, so I know that folks have, we promised we'd be bright, we'd be brief, and we'd be gone. What is your, an old superintendent told me that. I used to work for a superintendent. We would have a meeting, and he would look at us and say, be bright, be brief, be gone. And I've always remembered that.
I like
it. And you can use that. You can use that in your Twitter feeds. Give us, in just a few minutes, some things that you'd like folks to walk away from. You know, kind of a summary. What do you think you'd like these journalists to walk away from?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start by saying City Bureau's mission is to bring journalists and communities together in a collaborative spirit to produce media that is impactful, equitable, and responsive to the public. We believe that journalism is not fundamentally a profession or an industry. It is an act of citizenship, and our role is not just to inform the public, but to equip people to access information they need to strengthen their communities. So these are frameworks. This is just a framework, and this is just a speech, a session, but the work that they represent is, I would say a proposal, a rough draft for a new contract between the public and the press. So I guess if I could say any one thing, it's just like reimagine local journalism. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Darryl Holliday, News Lab Director with City Bureau Chicago. Also, if you don't remember anything that you heard, these drawings are amazing.
Oh, and can I have yours? If you want to leave me
Phil.
your circles, I would love to read them.
That's right. But Phil's drawings are amazing. So you can just take a photo. Let's give a hand to Phil. All right. Phil, I think you need the massage for your hands. As much work as you've done. Now, final thoughts
All
from
right,
Stephanie.
yeah, just the last couple things. If you didn't get a parking ticket, you need one, come find us. Grab food on the way out, and we are going to share all the slides next week, and also we'll be clipping videos and sending them. So safe travels home, and thank you for being here. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you were awesome.
You guys have been
You were amazing.
Thank you.
Like I said, like I tell people, Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists, we're not shy. There are a lot of things. Shy is not one of them. Shy is